Hello. One of the mysteries of how forces work is this. How do inanimate solid objects exert forces? In order to understand that, we need to build a model in our minds of how a solid object works. And here we have an example of that. This model consists of these red plastic spheres, which are connected together by metal springs. The red spheres represent the atoms or the molecules of the solid object, and the springs represent the bonds that exist between these particles. As a result of this, any particular particle is able to jiggle in place, but it's not able to move relative to the other particles, at least very far. These particles are held in place, and this is what makes this object a solid, these bonds holding their particles in these relative positions. Let's think about what happens when this object interacts with another one. So let's say my hand exerts a force on this object. I will push in this direction on it. If we could see what was happening to the atoms or molecules inside this solid, we would notice that they are getting closer together. And the bonds that hold them in place, and this is represented by our springs, they become compressed. Hand is pressing inwards on the solid object, but the springs of our model are pressing outwards on my hand. And this is the origin of the normal force. If my hand exerts a force upwards on this object exerts a force downwards on my hand. Something similar happens if we were to look at the particles of my hand. Let's replace my hand with another model of a solid object. So when these are brought close together, they begin to interact. And my hand, represented by this solid, pushes upwards on this, causing it to compress. And as a result, it's pushing downwards on my hand. If we focus on the hand now, as these two objects interact, these particles here press downwards on these particles here through electrical interactions. And so the springs in the model representing my hand become compressed. When that happens, the springs are trying to return to their normal size, and as a result, they push upwards. So when these two objects interact, a pair of normal forces is a result. And this explains the mystery of how solid objects are able to exert forces on each other. The compression of the particles and the compression of the bonds between the particles, they try to push back and return to their normal size, and as a result, they exert normal forces on each other. All of this happens because of these microscopic electrical interactions that you would learn more about in your chemistry classes.